And this is going to be funny to hear because I'm not braggadocious. I feel like we may have made the best spoken word album of all time.
Yeah, I agree.
Empathy is one of the greatest things that helps change people's hearts from callous to care. 100 years ago, Black folks was still relegated to their own school sites, own fountains, own back of the buses. So, I mean, we are not far removed from this type of concept and ideology. This issue is one that dehumanizes the person. And a track like Black Boy Born Beretta takes that concept and begins to point a target at particular systems that make that actually happen.
So for those of you who've been living under a rock, Brandon Leake is the season 15 winner of America's Got Talent and is doing more than anyone to put spoken word into the mainstream. He's a poet, an actor, a director, a husband, and a father. This man has been an inspiration to me and many others across America and the globe. All right, like I'm like almost starting to get emotional just because I've looked up to him for so long. So this being on my channel is just mind-blowing. Brandon Leake has recently collaborated with the renowned poet Black Chakra in order to make a spoken word album called Level. And there's a particular poem from this album that we'll be discussing called Black Boy Born Beretta. Y'all should have seen my reaction by now. If you haven't, definitely go check it out. It's already on my channel. It's amazing, all right? But before we get into all that, Mr. Leake, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing well, man. Privileged to be able to be here on the channel, man. It's yeah, I've had a great admiration for the fact that you've given a greater platform to spoken word than I think you give yourself credit for, man. So thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, wow. That means a lot coming from you. That means a lot. Thank you.
No stressing, man. And I mean that, because the idea of like having channels respond and react to, you know, spoken word begins to normalize it in a real way. Because I mean, people, you know, respond and react to music, to movies, to video games, all this other stuff, pretty much all other art forms besides ours. And so now we get an opportunity for us to have that same type of engagement. And so it does a lot.
Yeah, and it's crazy because going into YouTube, I didn't make reaction content. I actually taught poetry and like analyzed traditional poems and stuff like that. And it was fun, but I noticed there was a vacuum on YouTube where there was no one reacting to spoken word, but there were these spoken word poems getting like thousands, millions of views. I'm just like, where's the channel that's doing that? So that's why I hopped into that in the first place. And you were the very first spoken word artist I ever reacted to on my channel. The very first.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had that like weird clickbait thumbnail. Oh man, I look back, I'm like, oh man, I hope he didn't misinterpret that or anything, but
Oh no, I remember, because I mean, like it wasn't anything worse than like the millions of people online who were like, he's not talented. Like, trust me, like I had way more stuff that was like running through my like feeds during the course of that time that I was like, oh man, this sucks. Like watching it, like I also get how YouTube algorithm works and like all that jazz. So trust me, I feel it. It's okay.
Cool.
I don't get off of it at all.
Yeah. All right. So I have a few questions for you because I want to make sure the audience, whether they've seen your content or not, gets to know your content better, specifically the album and Black Boy Born Beretta. What led you to collaborating with Black Chakra to make this poem and the project as a whole?
Forgive me, man. It was a late night here in Las Vegas. So honestly, I'd reached out to a bunch of poets who inspired me. So like Prentice Powell, Sean William, and like maybe 2 or 3 others, just on like, hey, yo, like I want to write a poem with you. And the process of like writing with everybody, Jacob was like the person who I like most easily connected with to be able to write and felt the most natural process of doing it with. And so I had hit him up and I was like, hey, yo, man, like we should do an album together. And he was like, okay, like what you thinking? I'm like, this Grammy run is coming up. And I'm like, this could be, instead of us putting our own individual project out, because there's a lot of, for everybody who does not know, there's a lot of, you know, politics that go into like Grammy nominations, winning a Grammy. Like there's a whole logistical process, and particularly with spoken word, the spoken word album category has been overrun by audiobooks. And so we haven't really had a great opportunity to be represented well. And so we came into it with a lot of strategy of like, hey, yo, we probably won't win this year, but we could make a good enough album that we could get the nomination and potentially win. But like, we wouldn't be mad. But then people would know our names for next year when we release our solos. Or now, since we've gotten such a great reception to this album, we're doing a part 2.
Nice.
And yeah, so that was kind of the motivation behind it. Was just like, hey, yo, like, we write well, we have 2 very different contrasting styles that we think if we come together we can make something beautiful. And we wanted to help push the category for the Grammys. And then for Black Boy Born Beretta, it was that was, so like each one of us pitched 4 poems for the album in terms of topic. This one was one of Jacob's topics that he pushed, and I was like, all right, cool, let's let's take this concept and how do we not only apply the bar heavy style that Jacob does, but how do we apply my storytelling element? And so for the track itself, I think I leaned more into his style of the hard-hitting bars and the punchlines. But then for the music video portion, I directed it, and I wanted it to be more of the story that accompanied the bars. So it was like the video brought a lot of duality to it, in my opinion.
Wow. Oh man, that's incredible. Okay. And I don't know if you know this, but Black Chakra helped my poetry slam team back in 2019 make it to the finals in a collegiate national competition. You know, it was like
what's the name of it? Cupsy?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, there we go. I did not know that. What school?
University of Houston.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So our slam coach, RJ Wright, knew Black Chakra pretty well, invited him to help us out with like our delivery and choreography and stuff like that. And that did wonders, you know what I'm saying? So Black Chakra is very dear to my heart, very talented poet. I'm so happy like you two work together. Like the moment I saw that you two were working together, I was like, match made in heaven, match made in heaven.
Which is super funny because so many people were like so concerned. Like I talked to so many poets who were like, yo, man, like, I don't think you two fit. Like, because it's the style part of it. Like so many of them are like, stylistically, man, I just don't know if you guys are like a good fit for each other. But then they heard the project and they're like, yo, this thing is tight, man. Like this is good. And so it was really good to be able to like both prove people right and prove people wrong.
Yeah. And I think you said it best that you two have strengths in certain areas. You kind of complement one another. It's really incredible seeing how that all came together, you know? Man, how long did it take to write the poem Black Boy Born Beretta? And then how long did it take to record and direct and all that, you know?
I don't know how long it took to write the poem individually. I know that the full album took us 6 weeks to write.
6 weeks, okay.
It didn't take us that long because, like, a little backstory, we had the final poem on the album, which is a bonus track called Rich Man, Poor Man.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first poem we ever wrote together.
Oh.
And that was honestly just like, it was just like, hey, can we write well together type of a thing. And every other poem was thematic towards the album story, which is why Rich Man, Poor Man is really just a bonus. And so what happened was we each picked our 8 topics we were going to write on, and we said, hey, yo, just write them. And then when we write them, send it to each other. And then he edited 4 of the poems. I edited 4 of the poems. And because I mean, Chakra is like a phenomenal editor. So like I leaned on him to learn how this editing process would go. And I was like, hey, yo, let me edit this one. And I was like, cool, give me another one. I was like, sweet, I'll take the other 2. I'll just edit the last 2 of them up. And yeah, it was really like a 6 to 7 week process of getting these poems like completely written, chopped up, and placed in a position where we felt like it would be like it could be good. And it was yeah, it was really quality.
Yeah, clearly. Oh man. Wow. 6 to 7 weeks. And I thought it would have taken longer than that. You know what I'm saying?
We would have taken more time, but we had the clock of that Grammy nomination calendar, so we had to have it in by a particular day, and so it was and oh yeah, in studio we recorded the whole album in 3 days.
Talk about hustle. Oh my God. All right, wait. So do you feel, looking back, that it was too rushed, or do you feel like, in spite of the timetable you were given, you still you still gave it your all and it was sufficient? What do you think?
Oh nah, like I feel like I feel like we made debatably the best spoken word album, and this is gonna be funny to hear because I'm not braggadocious. I feel like we may have made the best spoken word album of all time.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
it's and like I don't know a great deal of the history. I gotta study more of it. But I'm like, as I listen to spoken word albums, from the from the instrumentation that my boy Ferris Ryan laced and put up on there, to the writing prowess and skill set, to the poems and the topics that we elected to talk about. I feel like this album as a whole, and especially a track like Black Boy Born Beretta, was something in which we were able to bring so much beautiful life to in such a short period of time, which is a testament to the time and effort and energy he and I have individually poured into our craft before this project, to where we were able to show up in the space and say, sweet, we know where this is going. We know what we need to get done. And not have it be this cumbersome task. I think that I know for a fact the next project will take a lot more time with. And probably what we'll do is when we record the album, what will end up happening is we'll probably end up making a visual album for it, which is something I'd really like to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't feel like we compromised in any regard with this project.
Wow. Okay. That's really good to hear. One thing I probably should have started this discussion with, for those who aren't aware, Black Boy Born Beretta explores the stigma of Black men being seen as dangerous, as terrors. And, if you watch the video that he put out, you'll see that there's police sirens, there's like red and blue lights, it's a very heavy, and it really screams like this is a problem that needs to stop. I would like to ask, how can we undo the stigma of Black men being dangerous, of their skin being like a weapon of sorts?
Yeah, man. The reality is, I'll give you the optimistic answer and then I will give you the realistic answer, because I'm an optimistic realist. The optimistic answer is we continue to do the hard work and labor of working not only on people's minds, but working on people's hearts. Empathy is one of the greatest things that helps change people's hearts from callous to care. And it's necessary for people to be able to see others as human, which is why like a poem like Pookie that I did on America's Got Talent gets the response that it gets, because it doesn't focus on, pointing the finger of blame towards anyone. It focuses on, this issue is one that dehumanizes the person. And a track like Black Boy Born Beretta takes that concept and begins to point a target at particular systems that make that actually happen, and who partake in that. So that's the optimistic concept. The realistic concept is you have to change people's hearts and minds, and also allow for an older generation to unfortunately pass away.
Yeah.
The reality is there's a great deal of people who, I mean, we're not far removed from, people being, we are only, it's like 2021, 100 years ago, which there are people who are 100 years and older. Black folks were not allowed in public spaces with white folks. Black folks was still relegated to their own school sites, own fountains, own back of the buses, all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, we are not far removed from this type of concept and ideology. And the idea that an ideology would just die that quickly is false. Like there's still grandparents who teach their grandkids, who teach their great grandkids, these types of things, whether explicitly or implicitly. Um, and it's gonna take some time. But we have to continue to do the labor. Um, and as the Bible says, man, like do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you will reap. Um, so yeah, man, we just got to continue to do the good work.
Wow. I hope viewers really take that to heart for real, because sometimes it gets really disheartening when, you know, you see another Black boy or Black girl get, you know, get murdered. Like it's wild. You know, I was in the African American Museum of Culture in Houston here just yesterday, and seeing like there was an artist painting of Sandra Bland. You know, in her shirt there were all sorts of heroes of Black America and things like that, as well as victims, decorating it all over. And one thing I kept thinking to myself is, man, when will this end? You know, when will this end? But with that being said, there is hope in the midst of this. And I do have one question. What difficulties came about in the making of this project and the album as a whole? And
Sandra Bland was like 7 years ago.
yes, like literally, yeah, it's just
Crazy to think that's almost a decade ago.
Yeah, honestly.
But what difficulties arose in making our project?
Yeah, I'm very curious.
The fact that we live on opposite coasts, having to get Chakra out to Cali so that way we could actually record the thing. My time and availability to be able to write and like do all this stuff, because I had so much going on at the time. Like I was getting ready to go on America's Got Talent again to do that poem that I did with my youth. My wife was like 8 months pregnant. So like there was just so much pulling on my time, and it was like, yo, this has to get done. Like this has to get done. And so that's what I would say was like stressing and pulling me on my end. I couldn't tell you what was on Black Chakra's end.
Wow, and you still made it happen. You made a great project too. No excuses. That's what that's telling me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
No.
man. So I don't know, man. Like I like what I do, and I respect it enough to say, yo, if I'm gonna demand a living from it, then I have to be willing to give the hours that it demands for me to get it. And so yeah, man, that was like countless hours of like me memorizing. Like I have all the album poems memorized.
I have like 3 of my poems memorized. That's probably it. I have others I've written, but I don't keep them in my head.
Yeah, man. I'm like, I keep them on deck because I know we're gonna make videos for them. I know we're gonna tour for this album inevitably. And so as soon as I'm done here, man, I'm like, yo, let's get to work. So
Dang. You know, that's awesome. And I thought I was working hard. Oh man.
yo,
Okay.
you are. I mean, everybody's doing vastly different things, man. Like the reality is like your hustle and my hustle may look different, but the reality is it could end up providing you like similar results, or not similar, but like results proportionate to what you're hoping to get. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's all what you're looking to get out of it.
Yeah. There was one line from Black Boy Born Beretta that hit heavy, but I know some viewers might want you to expand on it a bit. And it goes like this. Found a boy 3 houses down, put a silencer over his nose, muffled his bang, and that boy ain't ever been the same. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So earlier on, I start out the poem and I say, she don't say this as no compliment though, instead as a warning shot, because for being too loud, Black boys get mutilated. And like the double entendre play on that is like mute and for being too loud.
I didn't even
Right.
think that. Oh man.
And so it's building back into that storyline of like, oh, hey, like being too loud is the bang that comes out of his throat. Um, and so the idea of like they put a silencer over him, they, you know, they either took his life, or you can interpret it as they stole his voice, um, put a silencer over his nose, muffled his bang, and that boy ain't ever been the same. Um, it could be interpreted in a few ways. The first of which is that he's dead. The second of which is that they just scarred him mentally from the experience. The third of which is that they locked him up.
Oh, I didn't get that third interpretation until now. Locked him up. Okay.
So the idea is no matter what, you're removing this person's voice from the field of play. And so yeah, man, that was all a part of like a very all a part of a very like thoughtfully stitched together trail of lines.
And was there anything new you learned in the process of making a Black Boy Born Beretta and then the Level album in general?
Making Black Boy Born Beretta, I learned a lot because I said this was going to be a poem that would lean more into Jacob's style. So, or Black Chakra style. Let me stop calling him Jacob because his name is Black Chakra as a poet. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, let me lean into this more battle rap-esque style, this more battle poet style. And so, like, that's why you have like lines like, my neighborhood didn't have many dads, but had forefathers that knew the weight of jar jails, spar hell, scarred cells, and large cells, or something to that effect.
My neighborhood didn't have many dads, but it had forefathers, each one from a generation of old that knew the weight of bar bells, jar jails, spar hells, and scarred cells.
Like, I intentionally went into a style that was not my own. And so like that was a big part of it, while also not being him. Like I didn't want to be a Black Chakra clone. I wanted to be his style with my own interpretation. And so there was a lot there, man. And so it was good. It taught me so much about how to expand my writing, how to become a better writer. Black Chakra is one of the greatest poets I've ever seen be able to deliver punchlines. And so it's like that making level, I learned how to be more skilled at making punchlines. And I was able to also teach Black Chakra how to be able to be better at delivering and keeping the narrative alive.
Okay, what would be the cohesive theme of the entire album if you could put it in like one phrase or sentence or two?
Generational healing. You go from a track, Inheritance, where we talk about the pain of, you know, our genealogy, and then you go into Black Boy Born Beretta, where literally the first line of it is coming off the back of Inheritance is, my grandma always told me. It's meant to come after that because like I use that line intentionally building off of Inheritance. And so we've inherited this skin. What is the repercussions of that skin? Being weaponized. Yeah. What do we feel in being weaponized? Rage, which is the next poem. Our rage is due to the fact that our skin has taught us that we have to be twice as good to get half as much, which is the fact that we have to earn our keep or show and prove our worth, which is the next track. And from me and Jacob's discussion, where did we become keenly aware of this? High school, which felt like prison. And from there, it's like, well, what do we want to do about it? Well, we want to choose to be empathetic, despite the fact that it could cost us a great deal. We want to love in spite of. And then to close out, it's essentially us answering the question, like, who do we want to give this back to? Well, we want to give it back to our homes. We want to give it back to the place where we're from. But where we're from has also given us an inheritance, which then loops back and then takes the album in a full circle. The whole reason we call the album Level, and we're now going to call this group Level, is we wanted the album to be a palindrome where if you listen to it forward or backward, you can get the story. So if you listen to Where I'm From, going into love, the idea is, oh yeah, like where I'm from has taught me how to love more, taught me how to be more empathetic in how I care for other people, especially knowing that I felt all of this damage coming from this place in which I served all this time. And now going from there, I have a better understanding or care for the fact that I've had to show and prove my worth to the world for so long, which has made me infuriated, which now my rage pours into the idea and further justifies in a lot of people's mind why they weaponize me. And why they weaponize me is because of what I inherited.
Dang, that's heavy. I didn't even, okay, so now I need to go back to the album and like listen to it in reverse order, because it totally makes sense that it's a palindrome. The way level is even written out with like one L like this, the other L like that. You know what I'm saying? So you can, yeah. And level in and of itself, you can read it forwards and backwards and it's still level. That never even occurred to me. Yeah, okay. For those of y'all who haven't,
actually,
go ahead.
Here's one thing here's one compromise we made on the album, and this is a shout out to my man E-Baby. We actually did an interview with a poet out of DC. His name is E-Baby. He's a legend. In which we were going to have like interludes going between the tracks to narrate this story of these two young men going through this generational healing process, in which it was going to like stitch it together to where it was more easily noticeable, the palindrome, but we didn't have the time to edit the actual audio that we did on the Zoom call. So we had to cut it. So that's the one thing I wish we could have done. Because if I could have had that, I feel like it would have made I feel like it would have taken it over the top. I feel like the album was great in and of itself, but it definitely would have taken it over the top.
Dang, okay. Well, maybe that's something to consider for a future album, having interludes like that, you know? Not that you'd have the same strategy of a palindrome, but you know, that's something you can kind of put in your back pocket, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, man, we're definitely working on some things, man. I can tell you that much.
Wow. What would you tell a listener who doesn't really take it that seriously, the whole discussion about, you know, Black people being seen as a threat, or maybe they might even be on that side of thinking that, you know, racism doesn't exist anymore. Even if they think it exists, maybe they think we're over exaggerating when poets put out content like this. What would you tell them?
You're gonna feel how you feel. You'll never, if you're a Black person who believes that, I would challenge you to look beyond the statistics and look at the humanity of what you're denying someone, right? I understand that victimhood is currency in today's economy. That it's very easy to claim victim and, you know, be seen as a martyr for a cause that may not even be real. But Black people have never asked for that. Black people have never asked to be victims. If anything, Black people have been the most resilient in trying to, you know, move away from that victim mentality. And so when we profess these types of things, it's real. If you are not Black, you won't get it. You won't understand what it's like to even have yourself brainwashed to a degree to consider your greatest threat your brothers or sisters of color.
Yeah.
Because I don't deny the fact that, like, I've seen my fellow Black man or woman as a threat to me, in regards from the way that, you know, the world has talked about them, to the experiences I've had, to the way that media has portrayed us through movies and music and television. I'm like, there's been so many different things. So yeah, but you won't get it. You won't get it until you love somebody who is like us. And like, I don't just mean like love them as like, yo man, like they my homie, but like love them enough to care whether or not they come home.
Yeah.
And so when you love somebody enough that you're concerned about whether or not they return back to you safely, that's a very different thing.
That's well said. And yeah, like honestly, sometimes the racism is internalized to the point where you do have certain stigmas about people who look just like you. That's something I will raise my hand to that. You know what I mean? Like I've been guilty of that in the past as well. So yeah, viewers, I hope you take that with you for sure. I'm trying to see, do I have any more questions? Because what is the biggest takeaway you want viewers to get from Black Boy Born Beretta?
To share it with their friends. No,
that's a good
one. The biggest takeaway I genuinely want for people, the biggest takeaway I want from this album is the same thing I want from Black Boy Born Beretta, is to care about the human experience enough to value other people's human experience. Yeah. Like, my human experience has created space for my understanding of my pains, and how they're not exclusively just my own, have given me better understanding of how to relate and care for the issues that women tell me about, the issues that the LGBTQ tells me about. Yeah. Like, I get the chance to be a better ally, a better lover of people when I hear them, and I don't have to instantaneously believe them, but I have to give them space to be heard and determine through listening and analyzing, like, yo, they're a person who deserves to be cared for and loved on. Am I doing that well? And if I'm not, then why am I not? And so that's what I want this album to be. I want this album to be a resounding cry to the world about, like, yo, Blackness comes with so much beauty, but it's also comes with so much of this pain that we have to give credence to. So that's what I hope.
Wow. One of the things I enjoyed most about Black Boy Born Beretta is it expressed thoughts and feelings that I had never discussed with other Black folks, but I knew it was like a common shared struggle. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it was an unspoken thing around me and my friends. We never actually articulated those things, but yeah, it's true. A lot of the sentiments that were expressed growing up, I had to make myself smaller in a lot of ways to be seen as less of a threat. You know what I mean? Already just like I was pretty tall growing up. At this point, I'm 6'2", and I stopped growing around 16. But before that, I was really, really tall for my age, you know? Thankfully, I stopped growing early. Otherwise, I would have been like 6'10" or something. I was growing at a fast rate. Anyway, I was younger than all my other classmates by a year, but I'd be punished extremely hard. One, because I was bigger than the other kids, but also because I was Black, right? Which furthered my age, you know what I mean? And you see historically, Black children being tried as adults even in order to like increase the severity of their punishment and things like that. So this is nothing new in particular, but I never really articulated those thoughts exactly. Maybe because I didn't think other people would believe me, or maybe I just wouldn't be able to find the words. So seeing you and Black Chakra express that so poetically too, oh man, it hit different. It hit different. And thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. And I appreciate your time and letting me come here on your podcast, well, not your podcast, but on your channel to come holler at you, bro. I'm honored to be able to be here. And I guess now I'm about to go transition into getting this work done.
Perfect. Where can people follow you on social media, and where can they view your content?
So just go subscribe to my YouTube page, Brandon Leake, CTM. You'll see a picture of me eating a donut. Subscribe to me on YouTube. I got an Instagram, Brandon_Leake_CTM. Leake is spelled Leake. And yeah, fam, like, just come follow me, come see what the journey's about. We got some really cool stuff coming out for the world. And I'm excited to be able to give the world some really dope content, man.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Brandon Leake. This means so much to me. Like, you being the first person I've ever like interviewed for my channel. Like, this is just, I'm so grateful. Like, I thank God, honestly. Thank you.
But no, man, I just want to say, man, God bless you, bro. I appreciate you and your time, man. And I'll holler at you soon.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Bye.